in spirit of sharing, we're going to share the same book. Okay. And Rakshanda and I have known each other for a very, very long time. And in some ways, this book um, is a book which I think speaks of the times, and it's a book that we all must read because, in a way, there is loss as much as hope. And I wanted to ask you really to start off with talking about love in the time of hate. Essentially, you write powerfully in the introduction as to how you cannot, there's a low grade fever and you're sort of trying to find space and trying to sort of live with this where you haven't been able to breathe freely. And I think that's a lot of us. But can you talk really about that?
Yeah, Mandira, thank you. I do talk very openly about the kind of depression I feel, and many others like me feel. What I call the like a low grade fever, which is constantly there. It's not debilitating to the extent that you can't get on with the business of life, but it does slow you down. It feels like a weight crushing you, and there are various reasons for it. Of course, our newspaper headlines every single day give us some reason to pause and think and worry and fret. To set the tone of the conversation, I want to use a quote, a
Yeah.
share by
Yeah.
Bashir Badr, which I've actually used the opening of this book. It
Yeah.
says, सात संदूकों में भरकर दफन कर दो नफरतें आज इंसान को मोहब्बत की ज़रूरत है बहुत. So, for those who don't understand Urdu or may not fully get it, stuff all the hatred in 7 boxes and bury it deep. Today, humans need love more than anything else. I think there is a tide of hate which is sweeping us and it's coming to us from all
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
From WhatsApp groups, whether it's RWA groups or alumni groups or what have you, family conversations. It catches you unawares,
Yeah.
and you think you're in a safe space, you're talking to what you think of as people like us. But there is no such thing as people like us, I
Yeah.
think now.
Yeah. Yeah.
People you went to school with, college, neighbors, colleagues, whatever. There's a conversation that hushes. There's a silence that falls into a room when you walk into it. A, because people think you won't like what is being said, or you will disagree, or it will hurt your sensibilities, or whatever. So there is a sense of othering, which is sort of slight, but on the other end of the spectrum, there is the outright bigotry, there is the outright hate, there is the outright communalism, you know, and that is very difficult to kind of
Yeah.
navigate
Yeah.
and negotiate. So I thought, for starters, let's call out the elephant in the room. To begin with, let us admit that communalism is an issue. There's no point in having this ostrich
Sort of,
like
yeah, conversation. Yeah.
attitude,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
oh, people like us, we don't believe in it, and maybe it happens in the margins. No, I think it no longer happens in the margins.
And I think, you talk about this thing about people like us, and I think, Rakshana, when we were, you know, we thought everybody was like us, and actually, I think we were the minority. So I think we haven't really. I mean, when you look around and you say, "Oh my God, there's so much," but I think it was also because there were people like us. Were Do you think we
I'm
were
not
always
entirely
minority?
sure. No, Mandira, I would actually differ and disagree. I think we were pretty much the norm.
Okay.
I think this was the live and let live attitude,
Yeah.
the living together separately. I had neighbors growing up in South Delhi who may not eat in my house, but they didn't make a thing out of it.
Okay.
It was
Yeah, of course.
unspoken,
Yeah.
unsaid,
Yeah.
that they wouldn't, because their grandparents or their parents or whoever said, no, just kitchen mein meat bana hai, mat khao, which was fine,
Yeah.
but that it didn't come with a whole lot of other things. It wasn't so
Yeah.
sharp.
Yeah.
And it was unspoken, unsaid. So the idea of living together separately, I think, was in existence for a very
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's today that there is another layer of bigotry, of hatred, of sharpness that is added to it, where people want to inspect what is in your fridge,
Yes.
where they're willing to kill for what is in your fridge.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I think wasn't there. So I would like to believe that we were not the minority, we were not the fringe, we were pretty much the face of urban India, at least. And of course, we are the minority now. I mean, increasingly so.
Hmm. So, in the book you talk about how shires have dealt with this, and there is this one very powerful chapter where you talk about this aista aista, this change that happens slowly and slowly, and in some ways the banality of evil, and you talk about how if one grain of sand take away one grain of sand and one grain of sand, the theory where would the whole heap change. Can you really talk about that?
Yeah, you see, for those who haven't seen the book or read it, I look at the world around me in the mirror of Urdu. And Urdu poetry is not just about the Shama, Parwana, Bulbul. It's not just romantic poetry. There's a lot of heft, there's a lot of women vigor, political women vigor. And the Urdu poet, not just now, for hundreds of years, has been looking at the world through a political prism
Hmm.
also. And all of that finds reflection in Urdu poetry. So when I want to talk about what Mandira is referring to, the gradualism, the ahista ahista. It's not just rukh se naqab ahista ahista. It's not just the romanticization of Urdu poetry that talks of ahista ahista. It also talks about gradualism. When the first change occurred, when the first change in the fabric of our lives occurred. And I try to link real political events with, let's say, Mr. Advani's Rath Yatra.
Yeah.
Let's say what was happening in the 90s. Let's say the mobilization of resources at a very large, unheard of scale to pitch an idea, and an ideology that came with a kind of a muscular majoritarianism from the Yatratra, from the 90s onwards, which has brought us to this present point in time. So I talk of these things, but I use poetry as my frame of reference, And the thing about poetry is that good poetry can, or good literature for that matter, can rise above its time
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
circumstance and
Yeah.
speak to you. So let's say something was written, maybe not about the Rath Yatra, but it talks about gradualism. It talks about changes that are taking place bit by bit. And I'm able to make common cause. I'm able to put it together with a real
Yeah.
incident.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do throughout this book. Of course, there are specific instances. We are in Bangalore, so let's talk about Tipu Sultan.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So there is a huge amount of poetry in Urdu on Tipu, Sher Dil Tipu.
Hmm.
And in fact, there was a time when young boys were given the nickname, family name of Tipu. Their other names would be something else, but they would be called Tipu at home. Why? Because Tipu was this evocative figure. And the Urdu poet was quick to seize
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So there are instances like that where I talk about the Himalaya or the Ganga or
Or
figures,
or this whole aspect of the bhakti and Krishan.
all of that,
Yeah.
all of that. So there are sections on people, places, passions,
Yeah.
and politics. So the gradualism and the banality of evil and so on, there is that. But then there's also stuff on real things.
Yes.
As it were. I
And
mean, this is just as real.
Yeah.
actually.
And, yeah. But there's also, in the sense that, I wanted you to read out the bit where, and I think that we're at that space. I want you to read the Kefis thing with Basti Mein, because I think that really.
Yeah, this is there are 80 essays. No particular reason why they're 80. They just happen to be 80, which are divided in these four sections. And with these essays, I'm able to choose a whole bunch of ideas, different themes. This one here is on religious intolerance, and it's called Love in the Time of Hate. It talks of various things. It talks of love jihad, how something which is a coinage and a rather absurd one and a pejorative one is given sanctity because the Supreme Court of India is using it in its judgment. So it gains currency, it gains legitimacy as an expression to be used. So there is all of that. What you wanted me to read was
Read it a little bit, but
Okay.
it's that bit, and then I want you to read.
okay. So
Akhtar.
there's Kafi who's saying, बस्ती में अपनी हिंदू मुसलमान जो बस गए इंसान की शक्ल देखने को हम तरस गए. Now the poet, the Urdu poet in particular, has always been a realist of his times, his or her times. The Urdu poet has drawn our attention to various things
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
us. I want to read something short from Javed Akhtar.
Yes,
Yeah,
please. Yeah.
yeah. Um, you would have heard of First They Came. It's a long poem by this German Lutheran pastor, Martin Niemöller. It says, first they came for this, and this, and this, and then they came for me. And it's about Nazi Germany. And there are many, many things that remind us of what's happening in India today. And it talks about the silence of the majority, the cowardice, and the kind of, lack of engagement on the part of a large chunk of the population of Nazi Germany who saw things happening but chose to stay quiet. Now, Javed Akhtar, who has written some fine, sharply political poetry in his non-film Kuba, has written a long nazm called Lik. It's fairly easy to understand, so I'd like to read the Urdu, and where necessary, I'll give some translations. जो बात कहते डरते हैं सब, तू वो बात लिख, इतनी अंधेरी थी न कभी रात, लिख, जिनसे कसीदे लिखे थे वो फेंक दे कलम, throw away all the pens with which you wrote all your elegies and praise, फिर खूने दिल से सच्चे कलम से सिफात लिख, जो रोजनामों में कहीं पाती नहीं जगह, जो रोज हर जगह की है वो वारदात. Our newspapers and our news platforms talk of certain things, but they don't talk of the things that actually need to be written and talked about. जितने भी तंग दायरे हैं सारे तोड़ दे. We limit ourselves. We limit sometimes our own freedom of speech, even though we make such a big fuss about freedom of speech. Some of us censor ourselves. We censor what we want to say, what we want to talk about. And the poet is saying, break those self-imposed circles. जितने भी तंग दायरे हैं सारे तोड़ दे. अब आ खुली फिजाओं में अब कायनात लिख, जो वाकयात हो गए उनका तो जिक्र है. All that has happened is mentioned. We love to invoke history and all the wrongs of history. लेकिन जो होने चाहिए वो वाकयात. इस बाग में जो देखनी है तुझको फिर बहार, तू डाल डाल दे सदा, तू पात पात लिख. Write in every stone, every pebble, every leaf.
Yeah.
This can be said in multiple ways. Sarshar Selani, again, a poet lost in the mists of time. That's the other thing I'm trying to do. We talk about Ghalib and Iqbal and all the rest of it, but there were fine poets that have somehow or the other slipped through the cracks of memory. In their own time, they were very popular. Sarshar Selani is one poet who's very popular. He's written a great deal about communal harmony, about पूरे बाग में एक ही रंग का अगर फूल है. I mean, you may or I may love the lotus, but when I walk into a garden, I want to see other flowers too. You and I may love the saffron color. I incidentally do love the saffron color, but I do like to wear other colors as well. So the poet is constantly saying, walk into a garden and see
Yeah.
flowers of every hue, every fragrance, every color.
Yeah.
And every now and then the poet is the modern poet. Let me quote.
Yeah. Yeah. Please.
Shahryar.
Yeah.
Modern poet with a modern sensibility. He's writing. एक शेर सुनाती हूँ, फिर एक छोटी सी नज़र. He's saying, वक्त तेरी ये अदा मैं आज तक समझा नहीं, मेरी दुनिया क्यों बदल दी, मुझको क्यों बदला. Some of us feel like a modern day Rip Van Winkle.
Yeah.
It's like we've woken up to a world that's suddenly changed. When did it change? We didn't keep pace with that change. Again, listen to Shahryar. छोटी सी नज़र. अंबेसडर साहब आपके लिए.
हाँ.
ये जो आसमां पे सितारा है, इसे अपनी आँख से देख लो, इसे अपने हाथ से छू लो, इसे अपने होंठ से चूम लो कि इसी पे हमला है रात. अब शायद इसकी ज़रूरत नहीं समझता कि वो आपको बताए कि ये कौन सी रात है, क्यों अंधेरी है, ये कौन सा सितारा है, इसको छूने की क्यों ज़रूरत है। ये सब आप इन्फर कीजिए कि क्या रात है, क्यों रात है, कौन सा सितारा है, why do we have to touch it, why do we have to see it. I think because we need to bear witness.
Yeah.
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 So I think the poet is also drawing attention to the need to bear
Bear
witness.
witness. Yeah. Yeah. And yes, I know. Please do, because I mean, okay. So I also wanted to. I mean, we started with Rashid Bhat, and I wanted to ask you. I've been to Meerut. Can you tell them the story about why this? Why is it such a fabulous thing? Because his house is burned down in Meerut during the riots. And he was the only, I think in Meerut, by the time, that time, I think people had sort of chosen, मतलब दो तरफ हो गए थे, या तो आप हिंदू थे, so you all lived in one area, and the
Ghettoization.
in the ghettoization, and Muslims lived in the other. He lived in a mixed areas. And even when I went, and it wasn't very long ago, and I met somebody who was from Meerut, and he says, every childhood has their own sort of jokes, right? You have all these in jokes, and in Meerut, riots was an in joke. You grew up sort of have this big black humor about riots.
Like the PSC, the Police Armed Constabulary.
Yeah.
Much hated, much reviled, but also the butt of very dark jokes,
Yeah.
dark humor.
Yeah, yeah. So when you go and you see, but just this English, but that's you know that's where it is, and you refuse to abandon it. So how do you sort of keep up hope? And what does poetry tell you about that?
Yeah, writing something like this every now or the other sort of stuff that I usually write, there is a nagging sense of, will the blind see? Will the deaf hear? Maybe not, especially those who are willfully blind and willfully deaf. But what is the other? दूसरा क्या चाह रहा है? हथियार डाल दें, सब स्पेसेस को सीड कर दें, एक किसी आइलैंड पे जाके रहें, क्या करेंगे? What is the solution? तो हम में से वो लोग जिन्होंने सोचा है for whatever reason कि हमारे पास एक ही तरीका है और वो है लिखना. So
Yeah.
that's what we do. I mean,
Yeah.
because that's all we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, Ghalib had said after 1857, he saw the siege and slaughter of not just Delhi, but a way of life. And he said, चलिए अब ऐसी जगह चारस कोई ना हो, गमगुसार कोई ना हो. So let's go away and live on an island where nobody knows us, nobody knows our language. There are trees and plants growing out of trees. But I think that was, I mean, Ghalib didn't go to any such place. He continued to live in Delhi. So there are moments where a person thinks that, हथियार डाल देने चाहिए क्योंकि क्या फायदा? But then one goes on.
Yeah, yeah. And I was trying to look through my notes to say that I asked you to read the other poem of Akhtar. Have you?
Sorry, I don't have that. It will take me a while to find
Okay,
it.
fine. So, can I ask you to? I mean, in terms of bearing witness, one of the aspects of protest, and can we talk about Urdu in protest? In some ways, it really did become the language of protest, and Hum Dekhenge, which has become sort of this anthem of protest in many ways.
Yeah. So, ehtijaj, the word for protest, there has been a tradition of ehtijaj for going back to at least 300 years. The template of the ghazal and the sher in particular is such that it's a bit like pouring new wine into old bottles. There is an existing template. And for far too long, the Urdu poet has chosen to write within that template. So you had a set of tropes and metaphors, the Buddh, the Sanam, the Kafir, and these may have been used in a romantic sense, but with time, the poet began to give agency to these time-honored tropes. So Buddh, Sanam, Kafir then came to be used for the Angrez,
Yeah,
for the,
yeah.
the colonial masters. And it's how you tweak words, how you use them, so within those time-honored confines, you can find ways to reuse the same words and give them agency. 300 years ago, roughly, after the Battle of Plassey, Raja Ram Narayan Mauzu wrote, "Ghazala tum to waqif ho, कहो मजनू के मरने की, बेचारा मर गया आखिर को वीराने पे क्या गुजरी. Now, heard for the first time, it's a romantic
Yeah.
share. It's talking about Majnu and you know the gazelle and so on. But no, it's a deeply political form of protest. To us in 21st century, it doesn't seem like protest, but back in the day, it was protest. Because who is the Majnu? Majnu is the Nawab who has been Siraj-ud-Daulah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, who is suddenly emerging as a heroic martyred figure. So protest, like many things, like feminism or various things, changes with time. You know,
Yeah.
I like to give this example very often that Isma Chugtai was considered a feminist writer in her time. Read 70, 80 years later, I find her very problematic and not in the least feminist. So I think our understanding of various things changes.
Yeah.
The Ihtijaj has been a constant for at the very least 300 years in Urdu poetry. It's taken different forms. It's taken, so when a Faiz is saying Hum Dekhenge, it's written during General Zia's time and the draconian Hudud ordinances and all the rest of it. But it makes equal sense when when I come from Delhi, so my frame of reference is Delhi and NCR. So when the Hero Honda factory has a protest of workers, the workers sitting on strike say, "Hum dekhenge," right? And this poetry is completely wrenched from its Zia's time, Pakistan. Oh well, Delhi University teachers sit on a strike against the vice chancellor, talking about asking for this, that, the other, and they say, "Hum dekhenge." Again, it has nothing to do with Zia's Pakistan, but it's the idea of it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I keep doing in this book. I sort of find poetry and make it fit or find common cause,
you know,
with something which is topical and relevant and of our times.
Yeah. So my one farmaish. Are we going to do one farmaish? Are we going to read this? Do you want to read? Do you want to read Faiz? Do you want to read Bol Tere Lab Tere?
Why don't we take some? I mean, these are very.
Yeah, we're going to open up for questions. But before we open up for questions, do we have? Can we raise hand and see whether we want one more?
You know, most of these things. I mean, Hum Dekhenge and Azad.
Anything that you want.
Read quite a bit. So I'm going to open this book very randomly
and just see what.
And let's see what reveals itself. Okay, let's see this. Oh, this is Tipu actually. है तेरे बाद तेरी याद इफ्तिकार वतन तेरा मज़ार है शाम सरे मज़ार वतन. Now Tipu comes up, you know, we like to invoke people and rewrite history whenever there's a controversy. I mean, the Bangalore Lit Fest itself had a huge controversy some years ago over Tipu. So you have renaming of a road or a garden or a park somewhere in Bangalore over Tipu, and it gains currency. But not so for the Urdu poet. The Urdu poet has seen Tipu for military strategist, an inventor, you know, for all kinds of things. So I think it's a little worrying that we invoke figures from our past only when we hit a controversy, and we then disengage them from all their other work, all their other qualities of heart and mind, and then we just see them in the context of that controversy.
Yeah, but that's because we see them through a lens of Twitter in some ways.
We see them from a lens of Twitter. We see them from a lens of this or that, us or them. You know, so the binary is created very sharply, and then they have to be fitted in that binary.
Okay, so we have 3 minutes. Any questions? Yeah.
Thank you. I haven't read the book yet, but I look forward to doing so. I understand the time of hate. Where is the love? Would you like to explain the title? And secondly, if I could just ask, when you talk about Urdu being, and the poetry of protest, isn't it more the poetry of lamentation that we come across in Urdu? And does that make it particularly suited to when you write about a time of hate?
There's a great deal of love all through the book. When I talk of the cities, the rivers, the mountains, the people, that is my way of talking about love for the country. The hate is, I try to combat that hate, which is there, which is a constant, which is a leitmotiv that runs through this book. But I think I try to combat that by constantly invoking hate. I do believe that नफरत का पौधा तो बड़ी मुश्किल से लगता है, उसको कांस्टेंट अटेंशन चाहिए होता है. लव इज मोर ऑर्गेनिक, वो अपने आप उगता है. Your other question was about the nostalgia and the woebegone quality. The first example I gave about the Siraj-ud-Dowla's assassination, killing, that yes, but with time that woebegone quality, the pathos, the nostalgia has leached out of the poetry of protest. I think the modern, not even so much modern as the poetry that was written by the progressives from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, the protest was very sharp. There was no fig leaf. I'll admit that a Shahryar or a modern poet will have a fig leaf. I will admit that there is an occasional woebegone quality to protest. But no, there has been a very clearly demarcated chapter in our literary history where there is absolutely no attempt to mute that protest, where the protest is sharp, clear, and in your face.
One more question then.
I think you had mentioned that you want to you wrote this book because you found that what else can I do today? I want to bring the old writers back, and look into them. So do you think that is because nostalgia is of course there, or that their writings are still universal themes, but you miss something in the writers of today, so you have to go back to them? I'm just saying.
No, I think, when I was writing this, and this was written over a period of...
The writers of today, that's what
the writers of today occasionally, in Urdu at least, are politically correct, more politically circumspect. There is an occasional Javed Akhtar who's writing Lik and other things. But by and large, they resort to modernism, which allows you to use symbols and metaphors and so on. I find that some of the older writers, maybe it's a literary device, maybe there's a literary reason for it, or maybe there's an outright political reason for it, hard to tell sometimes, who were more, they had a 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 sort of attitude in literature. So yeah, and many of them are forgotten because, they've been replaced by the John Elias and the Iqbal and the Ghalib and the others. What is in currency? And so these other names have kind of slipped through the crevices.